Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We've got another Monday Night Football doubleheader, so plenty to discuss, like how you should approach this Rams-Bengals game with a banged-up Joe Burrow, plus the stats and trends you should know going into tonight. But we start with a look at one of our top NFL props, according to Pro Tools, which are available with an Action subscription. Philly running back DeAndre Swift going over 9.5 rushing attempts has a 27.3% edge for a grade of A+. As the Pro line estimates, he'll get 12.6 rush attempts. With that, we welcome in our predictive analyst, Nick Giffen, as well as NFL expert Simon Hunter. Hope you both are doing well on this Monday. Nick, we'll get your favorite prop for the evening in a few, but first, let's talk about the Philly-Tampa Bay matchup as a whole. How are you betting this game?
Yeah, I think this is a great spot to go under on the total here of 45. This is our biggest luck total of the week. These two teams have combined to score 11 points more per game than the expected scores. So anything with a difference of at least 10 is significant at this time of the year. So being at 11 points more than expected means we should expect them to start scoring a little bit less. And the reason's pretty straightforward. Both teams have a defensive and special teams touchdown. Those things aren't expected to happen. Now, they do happen, and they are accounted for in our expected scores, but that still comes in over expectation on those points scored. Additionally, the Eagles, they have had 5 field goal attempts of at least 48 yards. They made 4 of them, which comes in over expectation, especially making both a 56-yarder and a 61-yarder for Jake Elliott, who traditionally hasn't been a very super high field goal percentage kicker. The Eagles also have a really long 63-yard touchdown pass. And again, while these things do happen, especially for explosive teams like the Eagles, and we do account for that, still coming in over expectation just 2 games through the year. So a lot of scoring, especially by the Eagles. That has been maybe a little bit fortunate. They were definitely fortunate to beat the Patriots 25-20 in week 1. And they've been fortunate to score while holding other teams to a little bit less than expected. Additionally, referee for this game, Adrian Hill. Adrian Hill ref games are 32-19, a 62% rate to the under since the start of 2020. His crew dishes out holding calls at one of the highest rates in the NFL among all crews. And Tampa Bay, well, their offense so far this year has had the most offensive holding calls. So I think it's going to be tough for that Tampa Bay, offensive line to hold off that Eagles front 7, the ferocious Eagles front 7 there, especially with a high officiating holding rate. So we can see a lot of Tampa Bay holding penalties as well, just making things go a little bit more towards the under there.
Simon, just making sure you heard that your Eagles may be experiencing some luck so far this year. How do you feel about this game?
Yeah, I'll piggyback right off what Nick said. Primetime unders. That's what we want to take here. It's pretty simple. I always joke with people. They're asking me for my best advice as a professional bettor. I say just bet primetime unders. That's if you want to quit your job and just bet simply every week. Primetime unders. This season, week 1, 3-0 primetime unders. Week 2, 2-2. This week, we're already 2-0 on primetime unders. And for my guy, Evan Abrams, I love this stat. Primetime unders in night games now are 147, 97, and 3. So 61% since 2019. It's just a smart bet. The public's going to bet this number up. So if I already like the under, I'm tending going to like the dog, right? So if I'm getting 5.5 points, 5 points in a game, I think it's going to go under. I'm just going to do the math and think, okay, this game comes down to a field goal or a missed 2-point conversion. That's a nice number to be on 5.5. So Tampa in this matchup, the Eagles' question marks for me is nothing offensively or defensively. It's all about the coordinators. I don't trust these coordinators. Now, yesterday, Eagles' last offensive coordinator, he's now the coach of the Colts. They won yesterday. Their old DC coordinator is now the coach of Arizona. They won yesterday. And in 2 weeks, the Eagles' defense and offense have had some questions about the defensive play call and the offensive play call. So this bet on Tampa, I don't think Tampa's a better team at all. I mean, on paper, if this was week 10 or 11, I would love the Eagles at this number. Because it's early in the season, I don't really trust these coordinators. I think we're getting a good number with a Todd Bowles defense against this questionable offense with this Eagles team. So, yeah, 5.5. I love that number.
Well, the winner of this game will join the 49ers as the last undefeated team standing in the NFC. But Nick, going to turn it back over to you for a prop tonight.
Yeah, the winner of this game will probably end up number 1 in our luck rankings as well, because this is number 1 and number 2 facing off in our luck rankings. But for my player prop, I'm going to go to Jalen Hurts over half an interception. You can get that as high as plus 165 out there. Now, last week we did hit that interception, so we're going back to the well here. Jalen Hurts has a bad ball rate of 12.5%, and that's been pretty consistent throughout his career. And about 20% of all bad balls in the NFL end up as interceptions. And Hurts has been slightly lucky that of his 7 bad balls, there's only been 1 interception so far. So he's coming up just a little bit under half an interception under expectation. So a little bit of luck there. Also, his turnover-worthy plays have fluctuated from around 2% to 3.5% in his NFL career, averaging around 2.5%. It's over 4% early so far this year. Both that bad ball rate and the turnover-worthy play rate would put him at an interception rate that translates to around plus 130 as fair value on the 30.5 projected pass attempts that we have him projected for, and that his line is set at, versus an average NFL pass defense. Well, Tampa Bay, they've been above average defensively so far this year, with 10 bad balls forced on just 73 pass attempts faced, so much higher than the NFL average. Yes, we do need to adjust for the fact that they were facing Justin Fields in one of those games, as well as Kirk Cousins, but it's still above average when you're looking at the bad ball rate that they forced. And so while they do have 3 picks this year, and that has been a little lucky, they still should expect 2 interceptions so far from their 2 games, which is 1 per game. So just overall, Jalen Hurts has been a little lucky. His turnover-worthy plays, bad ball rate, all suggest around plus 130, and he's facing a tougher defense. So I actually have about plus 125 as fair in this prop. So I don't mind betting this down to like plus 140, and we're getting plus 165 out there.
Not bad. And to reiterate, a week ago you picked Deshaun Watson to go over a half interception, which worked out for you. Also, just further illustrating the Bucs are pretty good at defending the pass. They've allowed the 6th fewest passing yards so far this season. Now, the other game this evening has been speculated on for the last week as we see the many faces of Joe Burrow there. He aggravated his calf on the 17th, and this line has just fluctuated as a result, but the Bengals sit as 3-point favorites with Burrow expected to give it a go. So, Simon, we'll start with you here. Thoughts on this game as the Bengals try to recover from an 0-2 start for the 2nd year in a row?
Honestly, I really wanted to be on the Bengals. Like, they're 0-3 against the spread. I mean, they're 0-2 against the spread, 0-2 on the season. I thought the public would be off of them on the Rams here, but it's actually pretty split where the pros like both sides and so does the public. And if you're just looking on paper, I want to take the Bengals. Like, this is a great spot to take the Bengals. But to me, the value is starting to shift towards this Rams team. If you can get 3.5 before kickoff, that's the number to take here. Unless you already got the Rams early in the week, they opened 6.5. People don't realize last Sunday they were 6.5. The Burrow news came out. It was 3.5 last Monday, down to 2 all week. And now, like you just said, it's back up to 3. I do think Joe's going to play. But if he's not the Joe Burrow we all know, the Joe that can scramble and move in the pocket, like get outside the pocket when the play breaks down and make things happen, he's not good. Like, you might as well have Ryan Tannehill back there. There's no difference. It's like you're taking a young 20-year-old quarterback and you're turning him into a 35, 40-year-old quarterback. It's just you're taking away what makes Joe so great. So love the spot for the Bengals in a bounce back spot. But if it gets to 3.5, all the values on this Rams team that the public just does not believe in. I mean, they are 2-0 against the spread. Their win total is 6.5 coming into the season. So nobody but pros was betting this team to go over that. And it's turned out that Stafford's still a top 10 quarterback. This guy and his numbers are impressive. He's making a rookie wide receiver one of the greatest receivers we've ever seen. So it's just a team I love, the Rams. And if you're giving me 3.5 on a really, feisty, hungry team, this Rams, that's a good number against a Bengals team that it just seems like they're having the year from hell. So them be 0-3, I would not be shocking. It's just all going bad right now in Cincinnati.
Although it would be kind of heroic, right, if he actually played and somehow managed to win the game. But Nick, how do you quantify Burrow being on the field also playing hurt?
Yeah, it's pretty tough sledding if he is hurt. And to what Simon alluded to, when those plays break down and he's able to move around the pocket or even outside the pocket, scramble, he's really good. He's one of the top 3 in the NFL since the start of last year in quarterback rating when he's throwing outside of the pocket. So that limited mobility would really hurt his ability to, first of all, escape this pocket, and then second of all, be efficient from outside the pocket. So knocking that efficiency, that part of his game down is huge. And I think there's no bigger illustration than week 1 against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I understand Cleveland Browns have an incredible defense. They've had some insane stats to start the year through the first 3 games. But even then, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals in week 1 against Cleveland had the 9th worst success rate of any team in any NFL game since the start of 2015. Now that's 2,205 NFL games, which means 4,410 teams playing in those games because it's number of games times 2. So that means this was not a bottom 1 percentile performance. This was a bottom quarter percentile performance by this Cincinnati offense in week 1. Burrow had 0 scrambles in week 1. Teams are able to kind of just key in on other areas, not having to worry about Joe Burrow's mobility, so they can target the run game. They can target, stopping the elite wide receivers that the Bengals have. So just a really poor performance in week 1. If he's going to be playing injured, that severely impacts this Cincinnati offense.
It's a tricky situation for bettors, and the Bengals are likely shooting their shot with Burrow, knowing only 6 teams in the Super Bowl era have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. You've heard it so much. But Nick Giffen, Simon Hunter, thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely.
Let's further break down Burrow's struggles to start the year, even though it's sad. His QB rating is ranked 21st in the league. His completion percentage is 32nd, and he's averaging the 3rd lowest yards in the air. In fact, he's 0 for 12 on passes of 15-plus yards this season. Some of those stats are courtesy of Action Network Director of Research Evan Abrams, who joins us now. Can you explain just how much Burrow's start to this season has been a departure from his usual reliability?
So I think we just need to go on the Burrow roller coaster. Like let's start to go up a little bit.
I'm ready.
Because I just think as a whole, there's just been so much going on with him throughout the first 2 weeks. So overall, 32-19 against the spread in his career. Since he was drafted, he is the most profitable quarterback against the spread. So as a whole, looking at everything he's done, nobody better. And we understand that. But let's take a look at when he doesn't play, even though I think we have an assumption he might tonight. So as a backup, there's been 7 games for the Bengals in the Burrow era without him. Ryan Finley and Brandon Allen, they went 2-5 straight up. And I think more importantly, they only averaged 16 points per game. So not much scoring, and going up against a Rams team who's been scoring pretty well, probably not a good recipe. So that is the good and the bad. But I think, now listen, Nick talked about this. Simon talked about this. Burrow's been really bad this season. 4th worst in EPA per play. It's Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, and Joe Burrow. You don't want to be on that list. His 6.2 average air yards for Burrow, 3rd lowest in the NFL. So not even throwing it much downfield. And maybe the stat of all stats entering tonight, he's 0-12 on passes 15-plus air yards downfield. So there's been absolutely 0 completions that are really getting them down the field and really moving the balls. So the good and the bad, but I just don't think we know what we're going to get out of Joe tonight, which is why you've seen 6.5 points of line movement here.
Yeah, it's sad, the good, the bad, and the ugly. By the way, EPA stands for expected points added, which is used to try and define how many points a player is worth to a team. Let's move over to the Eagles-Buccaneers game. What does your research tell you about this quarterback matchup?
So, first of all, the Bucs, the only team in the NFL without a giveaway, which Baker Mayfield as their starting quarterback, probably not something I would have bet on before the season started. But to me, there's one stat that kind of encapsulates Jalen Hurts and what he's done in his career and entering tonight. So he's excelled at home. He's 14-5-1 against the spread. That is the best of 88 quarterbacks since 2020. Nobody better. On the road and on neutral field, he is 7-13 against the spread. Of 90 quarterbacks, that is the worst since 2020. So hard to get a stat that, encapsulates everything. Simon said it, and I kind of agree. I think that 5.5 number earlier in the season, I'm a Baker guy tonight. I'm probably going with the points, and I might regret it, but I think the trend kind of continues.
Well, I actually meant to go back a bit about the Rams before we touched on that game. Anything from the Rams side of things?
Just one fun stat. Now, I know this is a Lions and Rams stat when you talk about Matthew Stafford. There's a lot into this, more than just his career with McVay, but he is 4-16 straight up and 7-13 against the spread as an underdog in night games. So playing at night in prime time and not supposed to win the game. Of 190 quarterbacks to make a start at night as a dog, that is the worst mark in the NFL. So not so great. A lot of Lions and just a little bit of Rams.
Okay, very interesting tidbits all around for this Monday Night Football doubleheader. Before we let you go, wanted to touch on something from yesterday, which was obviously remarkable. Miami scoring the most points by an NFL team since Washington had 72 against the New York Giants in 1966. Dolphins also the first team in league history to record 5 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns in the same game. What can you tell us about what this could mean for them moving forward?
Okay, so I really fall in love with these types of stats early in the season because it's video game numbers, and that's kind of what you have with Miami. So the Dolphins are the 12th team in the last 20 years to be 3-0 straight up and 3-0 against the spread and be listed as an underdog in their 4th game. So forget the scoring, forget all that. Just talk about the fact that they've played well and they've covered and they've won, and now they're an underdog. Those previous 11 teams, just 2-9 straight up and 3-8 against the spread as a dog in that 4th game. So not great results, also not a huge sample size. But just a fun nugget, the Dolphins were actually the last team in this spot back in 2022. So just a little bit of fun. But to me, this is the more interesting stat. So Miami is averaging, wait for this, 43 points per game through 3 games so far this season. They are the 27th team in the wildcard era, now that's since 1990, to average more than 35 points per game through their first 3 games. Only one other one has been an underdog in their next game. So usually we see all this scoring, and of course the market's going to move us with the scoring, but not in this situation. The other team, the 2017 Rams, they were +5 in Dallas and won the game 35-30. So just an absolute interesting situation when it comes to Miami, and 2.5-point underdogs right now in Buffalo. And we might even see that moved up to 3. So just fascinating going into week 4.
Very much so. And if there is a team that can buck a trend, it seems like the Miami Dolphins would be a candidate at the moment. They are visiting Buffalo at 1 o'clock Eastern this Sunday, jockeying for position in the AFC East. Evan Abrams, thanks for hanging with us.
See you later.
Here are my 2 touchdown scorer picks for Eagles Buccaneers, brought to you by the Action Network app. And my first pick, we're going to go with Chris Godwin. I grabbed his touchdown odds at +220. Now, he hasn't scored a touchdown yet, but he's going to be needed versus Philly because James Bradbury is back. And with him and Darius Slay, they're going to try to take away the outside, try to force plays maybe a little bit more over the middle. And that only helps Godwin. He's the best Bucs slot weapon. 13 targets, 3 red zone targets in 2 games. Should have scored a touchdown versus Chicago last week. And the Eagles have already given up 4 passing touchdowns to the slot, so Godwin fits the profile to score. My next pick, we're going with Dallas Goedert. I grabbed his touchdown odds at +230. Another one that is yet to score this year. He got 5 quick targets last week versus the Vikings. Only saw 2 the rest of the game. But much like the Eagles, the Bucs are pretty solid at stopping the run, not as great at stopping teams over the middle. And there is a lot of squeaky wheels on the Eagles to score, most notably A.J. Brown, but Goddard at this price is too good to pass on. So those are my 2 picks. We're going with Dallas Goedert and Chris Godwin. That's right, the God combo, and both are tracked at the Action Network app. Bon chance.
Thank you, Gilles. Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's all for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.